Okay, cool. All right, so we are recording. We are ready to go. So, just as that reminder, we are exploring restorative yoga today. And as I was mentioning earlier before we started, is when it comes to teaching a yoga class, you want to as a beginning yoga instructor, it's important to plan the class until you feel confident and comfortable with the type of class that you're teaching. That it can occur spontaneously. So I was mentioning in the restorative yoga side of a yoga experience, the poses are held anywhere between 5 to 10 plus minutes, really depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a unilateral side of things or a bilateral. Um, and then at the end of the yoga class, we want to do 10 plus minutes of Savasana or corpse pose. So if you have a hour long class and you are going to do a 10-minute Savasana, that means you really only have 50 minutes, right? 50 minutes for the actual experience of the other asanas within them. So if you're holding a yoga pose between 5 to 10 minutes each, let's imagine we're just doing 10-minute long yoga poses. You only have available time for 5 yoga poses. 50 minutes can be filled with 5 yoga poses if they're 10 minutes long. Now, of course, you can get some more yoga poses in there if you shorten the length of time that you're holding the pose, or you, again, are switching sides on things. So the beginning of a restorative yoga class can start in a variety of ways, right? We want to bring a center into the practitioner. So, when we're practicing when we're practicing the restorative side of things, we're basically allowing time for the body to find rest, to find relaxation. So that's the point of holding the yoga pose for such a long time, is that you are surrendering into it and you're allowing yourself to relax into the pose. You may want to compare then what's the difference between a restorative yoga class and a yin yoga class. So the yin yoga classes, first of all, the premise is derived from yin and yang, and we have this idea of a Chinese traditional medicine in there. So we may be doing yoga poses that are stimulating certain meridians. And then also we are holding the yin yoga class, the yoga poses as well. But the difference between the restorative and the yin is that within the restorative class, we are prop heavy here. We're going to be using a lot of props to relax, to restore into the poses. Whereas in the yin, while we do find rest and relaxation in the yoga poses because we're holding them, the effect is slightly different, and we're not using props in the same way that we are in a restorative yoga class. I'm not an expert in yin yoga classes. I personally prefer teaching more of a slow hatha class, a slow vinyasa, and these very gentle restorative yoga classes. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start our session with a seated centering. So I'm going to make my way back into the middle of the yoga mat. Oh, that's right. We're going to explore how to use the props. So restorative yoga class. Again, we're using props in our class to support the body when we're holding yoga poses. So depending on what is available to you, if you have all of the yoga tools that are available on the market, bolsters and blocks and blankets, obviously you're going to use those traditional, or I shouldn't say traditional, more modern yoga props. But if you are a little bit more thrifty and you don't have those tools, You can use common household items to support you in the yoga poses. So I have a couple of blankets here. The blanket, or not blankets, but big bath towels. The towels themselves are nice because they're basically like a mini cushion and a mini pillow, and you can unfold them and fold them in a variety of ways to lift them up or to place underneath your body. So, for example, if we are doing a supported badhakonasana and we need something for underneath our hips or underneath our knees, a blanket or a towel can be nice. So feet are together, right? We have our knee that's not really coming down. We're going to put a support of our towels right underneath our thighs and our knees to keep that up, right? And we can fold forward and use a block to support our forehead as we come down and rest into the pose. Another variation for our badhakonasana here is if we have a bolster. And in this case, we don't have a bolster, so we can use a rolled up yoga mat, or we can use a few pillows or even a foam roller. But what we would want to do is place the prop right in between the hips here, and we use a yoga block to prop this up, this bolster, and we would lay on this, right? So we allow our chest to come down and rest here, turning our head to the side. You can also lean back, right? So in addition to leaning forwards, we can lean back. So this sort of arrangement that's in front of us would go behind us. So our yoga bolster, our pillows, or our foam roller or rolled up yoga mat would go behind us. So let's just turn around for a second. I know that this is probably going to fall over as I do it, but you want to use as many props as you can, again, to help feel supported. If we were doing the class in person, right, as a yoga instructor, we would go around and help our students get into these poses. So since we are in a digital format, we just need to do the best that we can describing how to arrange our props to get into these poses. So a supported Supta Virasana, right? The reclined bound angle pose. I'm going to put a firm pillow or bolster across these yoga blocks to create a reclined angle. So just like a lazy boy, you're kicking it back and you're laying back. So this bolster is going to be right in the middle of the spine. And again, I can use bolsters or blocks or towels, blankets out to the side to support my knees. All right, so finding the pose, lining up that bolster with the center of your sacrum, the center of your spine, right? You're going to help yourself back onto that prop. All right, I didn't fall down, that's great. And you can see here, right, so this is a supported, reclined Supta Virasana. And what's happening here is because that bolster is right behind my back, my shoulders are able to open. I can take the palms out to the side or arms out to the side with the palms up and allow my body to rest and restore here. So that's an example of using these props for badhakonasana. All right. Now what about some of these pillows? So pillows can be used just like I was mentioning, those bolsters. All right, so a yoga bolster is a little bit bigger than two of these pillows. Actually, it would be almost like this, and it's kind of round shape. And so the bolster is great because it's almost body length, it's soft, it's comfortable, it's something that you can sort of lay down on. So one of our restorative yoga poses is a supported twist, seated, supported, reclined twist. I don't know how you would want to call that, but maybe matyasana, perhaps, Supta Virasana. So what we would do is we would take our bolster, and again, you can use a foam roller too, with maybe some blankets on top or pillow on top. So a foam roller with a pillow on top gives us almost like a yoga bolster, what it would look like. It's a little unstable, so again, we have to be very mindful with the props that we're using at home. All right, so a seated reclined twist using a bolster for support. Okay, what we are going to be doing for this one is sitting in the middle of the mat, and we're taking that bolster behind us. So I'm going to turn around just so that you can see. Imagine that I'm facing the front. Okay, so I know that you're seeing my back, but you're sitting facing the front of your yoga mat. You're putting that bolster right in the middle. Again, right where your spine is. We use a lot of alignment with our spine here. All right, all we're going to do is turn our knees to the right side. So I'm just staggering my legs here, just bringing them over to the right. All right, sitting up tall, looking to the right, just like we would do a seated twist to our right. We're going to do that and then lay down on our bolster. So facing the front, inhale and sit up tall. We're going to walk our hands around to this bolster, frame the bolster with our hands, making sure that the bolster is lined up with that right hip. And we're going to lay down on there, trying to place our chest and torso over the bolster. Hands are there to support us, and just keep looking to the right. So I'm going to look away from you, and we're looking to the right. All right, so I have my knees staggered in a way that I'm getting a nice stretch along the top of my left thigh here. Another option is to keep the legs together, right? So if you just sit to the side, turn to the side, and bring yourself down. Okay, so that's how we can use the bolster to support the upper body in a seated reclined twist. Now, the bolster, just like the way that it is, can also be used in child's pose. We can support our child's pose. So because we have everything where it is, let's go ahead and give that a try. So, taking our fun little bolster here, we come into a child's pose type position, right? So the big toes are together, hips are at the knee, at the heels, knees are bent and knees are wide. We're going to take the bolster, bring it in, walk our hands forwards, and allow our upper body, again, to be supported on the bolster, turning our head to the left or the right. All right, so if you are, again, when we hold the yoga poses, if someone's turned their head to the left or the right, halfway through us resting in the pose, we're going to tell everyone, if you've turned your head to one side or the other, make sure you look the other way. We always want to balance out the body. So this is a pose that we would hold for maybe that close to 10-minute mark, perhaps. So we do want to make sure that we tell other people, to turn their head so their head doesn't get just stuck like this, looking to the left or looking to the right. All right, coming out of a pose, right, you slowly walk yourself away from the props. You be gentle with yourself after holding the pose for a while. Okay, so since we have ourselves kneeling like this, we can use the prop, the bolster like this, we explored this the other day in our training, was our reclined hero pose, which is Supta Virasana. So basically, the bolster, the prop would be up like this. We would be turned around so that the bolster is behind us. And so let me just demo what that looks like here. All right, so we have the bolster in the middle of the mat. Right, remember with Virasana, our knees are together and our heels are apart. So when we come down onto our bolster, we want to make sure that, again, that we have the proper position with the lower body. And if this does not feel good going all the way back, I know that Supta Virasana can be really challenging for you on the tops of your ankles, maybe even in the knees. This bolster does not need to be flat. So remember how we use blocks to lift the bolster up. We can do that same thing here, where we would position the bolster at an angle, and we would come back and lay at that angle. So since the props are already here, let me just show you what that supported reclined hero pose is. So knees are together, heels are apart. We use our hands to help us walk back. And again, we're lining the bolster up with the center of the spine. Now I have a short bolster because my foam roller is the short kind. So again, this is making sure that our alignment is correct. So if I feel that my neck is just really open, I don't like the way that this feels, I would want to put additional support so that my head is neutralized. And so that could be using a block, putting it right behind the head. Okay, now with these supported poses, again, it can be difficult, perhaps it feels difficult to get out of the pose because we have relaxed. So always invite your students to be mindful and gentle as they come out of the yoga pose. Now typically the area that is feeling the stretch right here would be our psoas perhaps, our quadriceps, the tops of the ankles. We want to engage those muscles to help come out of the pose securely. So kicking the feet into the mat, engaging your quadriceps, right? Squeezing your core, and we would lean maybe to the right or the left using our arms to help us come up. You can also use one other arm to swing up as sort of a counter. A little centripetal force here to get yourself out of the pose. All right, good. Let's go ahead and shift away from these props real quick. You can move them to the sides of the yoga mat. And just make sure that you have them handy. And like I said, if we were doing the class in person, we would pre-plan our class, have the appropriate props out for our students, or tell them which ones to bring with them or grab from the supply closet or wherever that is. Since we're doing these classes now from home, more digital format, again, just have everyone get what's available to them close to the yoga mat, and take your time to make sure that they get set up appropriately. Give that time for them. All right, so we're going to start with a seated centering. I know that we've gone over just a little bit with the explanation on how to use some of these props for the restorative poses. So we're going to do just a abbreviated then 45-minute session. So we're going to start in a seat and do a seated centering. So we're going to allow ourselves to feel comfortable in a seated posture. Again, you can always start in child's pose, Savasana, but restorative yoga, we want to invite restoration. So allow your eyes to close. Turn your attention to the five senses. The five senses is a great way to ground in the present moment, observing sound, right? Any smells or tastes, what the body physically feels like. And then even though the eyes are closed, maybe some sort of visual stimulus of clouds of color, different shades of maybe gray, white, yellow, blue. I get blue, red hues sometimes. But again, just noticing what happens in the visual apparatus. And then after centering and grounding through the five senses, starting to turn inwards towards our breath, observance of the breath, manipulation of the breath, our pranayama. And then as we're inviting conscious breath, let's bring with our breath a mantra or intention. Right? We use that word, the sankalpa. So setting an intention for our practice. Since this is restorative yoga, let's think about surrendering into peace, stepping into peace with each exhale. So inhale awareness, exhale tension, or exhale into peace. So let that be our mantra. Inhaling awareness, exhaling into peace. So try to, again, consciously be breathing, consciously choosing that mantra or something similar if you prefer. And we'll move into just some brief seated movements and then getting into our restorative yoga poses. All right, so sitting nice and tall, again, following your breath. You're choosing the inhale, you're choosing the exhale, and our mind is focused in on that mantra, the peace and relaxation. So inhaling up, awareness of the spine, lengthen the spine. As you exhale, bring the chin to the chest. Good. As you inhale, rock the right ear to the right shoulder. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale, opposite side. Good. Exhale, bring it down. 2 more times each side, making it 3. Going to each side 3 times. Good. 1 more time here. Inhale. And exhale. Good. As we inhale, let's slowly lift our gaze. And to give you another way of warming up or centering, let's try something different actually. We're going to do what's just generally called a lymphatic drainage massage for your face. And this is that's what it sounds, that's like a technical explanation of it. But basically what we're doing is we're going to be massaging our face, massaging the cheeks, the jawline, the back of the neck down to the collarbone, and then back up. And this is great because it helps to relax the face, relax the neck, as well as help clear any sort of sinus issues that are going on here in the forehead. All right, so take your hands, bring the palms together, and vigorously start to create heat within your palm. Yeah, get it nice and warm in there. Once you feel warmth on those palms, without actually pressing your eyeballs, just cup the palms and place those warm hands over your eyes. And you can allow that heat of the palms to penetrate those eye muscles. So feel your eyes relaxing, right? Feel the eyebrows relaxing, all those little muscles around the eyes, right? The bags of our eyes, softening, revitalizing. And then take your fingers right at the hairline and just begin to just very lightly brush these fingers down. We're pulling any sort of gunk that might be in the tissues and the sinuses down. So we're going to massage down the forehead, maybe here into the temples. And then lightly with your fingers, maybe your index finger or middle finger, but just lightly on the bridge of the nose, right here at this low part of our occipital cavity. I should say ocular, I believe it's ocular cavity, right? The eyes, so this little ridge right below the eyes where that puffy bag of the eyes tends to be, massaging down into our cheeks. And again, just very light, just lightly pulling the tissue down. And then moving to the sides here, right? We're going to go to the side of our head. We're going to make the little V, the Spock V here, and massage the sides of the ears down. Good. So from the sides of the ears, right, we can move to our chin. Massage, use your thumbs here to massage this ridge underneath our jaw from the front point right to the little elbows right here, right of the mandible. So massaging. And don't be afraid to actually press a little bit firmer here. You're going to feel there's some muscles that kind of wrap over the bottom of the jaw, and they can be tight. All right, good. And then we remember our muscles here of the neck, right? So we're going to be massaging down, and just a little elevation of our chin, and this light pressure can maybe open some stuff up in our throat. So it's not uncommon to cough or feel a tickle in the back of the throat massaging down here. And if you'd like to get the back of the neck, you can bow the chin then and start to work basically the bottom of the skull, massaging forwards. So we're draining all of the lymph ducts, the lymph tissues here into some of the lymph nodes and glands that are right here in the upper part of our chest. So once you've massaged the sides of the neck, we come right down into our collarbone. And you can feel all of this massaging, right? It's warming up our shoulders. Good. So once we've reached the collarbone, just a light massage on the inside edge of the collarbone. Might feel some tense muscles there. And then one last time, just a sweeping pass going up. So massaging the neck, the back of the neck, a couple passes on our jaw, around the ears, right here on the cheeks, around the eyes, the bridge of the nose, the eyebrows, and back to our hairline. Good. Go ahead and bring your hands down. Now let's move into some restorative yoga poses. So that just feels nice and relaxing. We're going to do our supported child's pose to begin with. All right. So make your way towards the back of your yoga mat in a traditional child's pose position with your legs. Again, some of us might feel pressure in our knees when we're in child's pose. So if that happens to be the case, you can use one of your towels. You're going to take the towel long ways and roll it up into a narrow little tube, and that just goes right behind your knees when you sit back for your child's pose. So I'm putting that right behind my knees. All right, I'm going to use for this supported child's pose a foam roller. And again, you can use a rolled up yoga mat with perhaps a pillow on top, again, to create that bolster. The foam roller just provides a little bit more of a firmer core for you to lay on. All right, so this towel can go behind the knees if you've got some pressure in the knees. We're going to pull that bolster in to the abdomen, reach those hands forward, and allow yourself to come down and rest in our supported child's pose. So turn your head over to the left or right, it doesn't matter. Allow your eyes to close. And remember, the restorative yoga class, we're still being aware of what's happening. Right? We're not just turning off and falling asleep. It might feel, you might feel the invitation. Your body might be tired. You might be tired to fall asleep, right? So let's try to stay awake and remember, come back to your breath. Choose your inhale. Repeat that mantra of relaxing into peace. So as you consciously choose your inhale, be aware of where you feel that tension in the body. And as you exhale consciously, again, exhale into that peace. Surrender the body away from that tension. All right, so we're going to do this pose for 5 minutes. All right, so go ahead and get cozy. Since I demoed the pose, I'm just going to move and grab my watch here just to make sure that we stay on track with the time. 5 minutes here. All right, so again, as we go forward, perhaps teaching the yoga class as a restorative yoga class, we want to, with the digital landscape, invite hands-on with words on, right? So in this particular posture, if you are walking around the yoga class, you may put hands on one shoulder and then the opposite hip and press away on either side diagonally, and that's going to create a sense of relaxation diagonally across the body. So with your eyes closed, right, imagine your right shoulder and your left hip melting into the floor. Feel the right shoulder and the left hip melting away from one another. And then let's switch that. Feel your left shoulder, feel your right hip. Inhale, awareness of those areas. And as you exhale, surrender that left shoulder to the floor, that right hip to the floor. Another hands-on would be placing the heels of the hands right at the top of the hips, the iliac crest, and with an exhale, noticing your practitioner, the yoga student's exhale, applying a little bit of body weight into the heels of the hands at the base of the spine there. So we can do that, again, using words on. So turn your attention to your hips. With an inhale, feel the hips sort of rise away from the floor. And with an exhale, press your awareness into the hips. Let the hips surrender into the heels. And you can do that a few times. Inhaling awareness into the hips. And exhaling, surrendering into the heels. All right. And again, as the yoga practitioner, or I should say instructor, guiding our practitioners, we want to instruct changing positions, right? So your head has been to one side, we're halfway through the pose. Inhale, lift your head and look the other way as you exhale to give our neck a different perspective. All right, we got 2 minutes, 2.5, close to minutes here. Let's just breathe into the pose. Remember these different ways of breathing into the pose. Feel your shoulders surrender with an exhale. Feel your hips surrender with an exhale. Good, we've got another minute or so. So breathe, don't forget your breath. Good, the last little bit here. Stay with it. Inhale slow, exhale slow. Inhale, awareness of tension or resistance. Exhale, surrendering into peace. Okay, we're going to transition out of the pose. So bring awareness into your body. Notice, right, that the knees are getting some stretch at the top of the knees, right? Notice how the backs of the knees feel congested, right? The hips, the shoulders perhaps. Just notice where that is and start to firm the body up around there. So firm up the legs, firm up your core, put weight into your hands and start to walk the hands slowly away from your prop, from your bolster, your blanket, whatever it might be. Come up to sit. And then lean over to your left or your right and have a seat on the yoga mat. So again, the exploration of teaching the yoga classes is putting poses in a way that they relate to each other. So since we've been folding forward, now we might want to do a back bend or lean back. So we've closed the hips, now we want to open the hips. So we're going to do a seated, supported badhakonasana. And this is one of the poses that we demoed at the beginning here. So badhakonasana is with the feet together and the knees open. We're going to recline here, so we're going to want a bolster or prop behind our back to support our back. So what I did before was I took my blocks, I put one block low and another block high, and I used a rolled up yoga mat. Okay, so if this is a side view of my back, the yoga mat was right at my hips. It was laid across these blocks to line up with my spine. And I would be seated here, laid back against this. All right, so I will set up again to the side here so you can see that. Just turn this around. So it's okay to take a minute or so just again to make sure that you are secure and comfortable in the yoga pose. It's always good to just feel where everything is, line everything up, try the pose, come out and readjust if you need to, and that's totally fine. Okay, so I demoed before also support for the knees. So some of us might not be able to get our knees down all the way. So we can put pillows, blocks, bolsters, blankets, towels underneath our knees as we come into the yoga pose. All right, so I know that you might already be set up at home, so go ahead and get into your reclined angle pose, supported Supta Virasana. Alright, so feet are together. The heels don't have to be super close to the hips unless you really want them. You can keep the legs away. You can also straighten the legs here and almost come into a supported fish pose in a way. So if we were to straighten our legs, right, we have this back bend of our upper back, very similar to a supported fish pose. All right, so we moved from supported child's pose to reclined Supta Virasana. And that's because we are focused on the forward flexion of the spine and now a back extension. Also the forward flexion of the hips and a slight extension of our hips here. Now you may be critical of the pose choices here because our knees are still bent. We haven't straightened our legs. There still might be a little tension here with the flexion of the knees. And we will move out of badhakonasana into another forward fold that features open legs, straight legs, and extended knees. All right, so since this is a pose that is bilateral, basically both sides of the body are doing the same thing, we're going to hold the pose for an additional 5 minutes. So it took us a couple minutes maybe to get settled. Now we're here, so let's go another 5 minutes into the pose to find that peace and that relaxation. All right, so once you are secure and settled, try to allow those eyes to close, still remaining alert and aware. And just so I can see here, so we have the use of a yoga strap in this pose. If we go online and look at some pictures of the restorative Supta Virasana, you may see some folks featured with a yoga strap around their waist and around their feet. And so what's important is that if you are using a yoga strap or some sort of strap material for this, is that you want one that you can loop and you can create a lock with. So basically what we're doing here is we are locking our feet close to our hips. So we've taken the yoga strap around the bottom of the feet. We've taken the strap to the lower back, the top of our sacrum here. And again, you want to make sure it's a yoga strap that you can sort of, seal shut at a certain length, right? So preferably one with a locking mechanism like this one here. All right, and that just, again, keeps our heels close to our hips. So when we lean back here, it's going to help keep the legs open and these heels close into the hips. So imagine I've got those props behind me. Right, now I'm into the pose. And you can even do this as an additional support in Supta Virasana. So I can just come all the way down to the ground if that's something I wanted to do. Just a few more minutes, so again, allow yourself to rest in the yoga pose. The intention behind a restorative yoga class is that we're really accentuating the rest period, the just being still in the pose. There is a meditation retreat center school that you can go to, generally called Vipassana or insight meditation. It's a wonderful experience if you have the opportunity to go to it. But basically it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat that teaches you preliminary meditation techniques that are attributed to the Buddha. And so in the meditation retreat, on the fourth day, you are encouraged to practice what's called strong determination. So each day there is about 9.5 hours worth of seated meditation practice. And that's certainly a very long time to remain seated for meditation. So it's very natural for us, if we're not used to sitting and being still, to move, right? To fidget and to adjust. And for the first couple of days, that's allowed. But if we are constantly trying to comfort ourselves by fidgeting, by moving, then we're really not letting some problematic stuff sort of come up for us to release and let go of. And so the practice of strong determination allows us the opportunity to sit with, again, this agitation that can come up from just very mundane discomforts that are apparent in the body. So when we're doing the restorative yoga poses, it's very important for us to try and practice surrendering into the pose as it is, as our body is, and limit our fidgeting, to really practice strong determination. So we'll notice that as we are in this pose and we begin to feel the effect of gravity pulling us down and relaxing some of those very deeply taut tissues, agitation can come up. We feel that we need to, like that stretches a little bit too much. We might feel like, oh, I haven't stretched this much before and I don't want to. Or you might feel that you need to kind of constrict some muscles. You don't open up as much. Right? What is that? The long duration of the pose allows us to kind of sit with that and let that go. So try your best in the pose to surrender, to practice our 10th, I should say the 5th niyama, the Ishvara Pranadhyana, where we surrender, the divine surrender. Okay, so we're going to transition out of this pose. So again, be aware of your body before you even move, right? Where are some tense points, right? We're going to squeeze perhaps mildly our inner thighs. We're going to squeeze our heels in towards our hips a little bit. Start to place those elbows and hands maybe to the sides to help lift our upper body away, but be slow and conscious of your body as you move. And then we're going to move into our third posture, which is going to be a supported Upavista konasana pose, which basically is our seated wide leg forward fold. And so we're going to use the bolster and props that were behind us the same way in front of us. So make your way on your mat into a wide leg position for that wide leg seated forward fold. And what we want to do here is, again, feel comfortable in our seat before we get into the pose, but we're going to stack our blocks or stack our bolsters, blankets, whatever we need to right in front of us so that we have a nice angle to lean into. And so let me just demo that. So just like we did before, we're going to put a block right in front of us near our hips and our pelvis. We'll place another block out in front of us. If we're using perhaps a foam roller, maybe, right, we're just going to adjust everything so it feels comfortable. If this isn't going to be supportive, right, so you can change the angles of things, right? So I'm going to place these at angles so that it's supported. And then I'm going to place a pillow on top to give me that bolster effect. Right, so as long as you feel supported and comfortable, right, you should be good to go. This might be a little unstable, so again, make sure that the props are stable before you start surrendering into the pose. It's happened to me before where I feel that I'm good, I didn't check my props, something slipped out, and then it just startled me, right? There's nothing wrong with that, of course, but we just want to minimize potential places where injury could occur. So make sure that the props are secure, that you feel that it's a good placement, and when you finally settle into the pose, that's something that is maintainable, right, for you, that's sustainable for your body. So we're going to walk our hands forwards. A couple options: you could bury your face into your prop here if you feel okay with that. Again, we want to breathe, so make sure that you feel comfortable with your breath. You can also turn your head to the left or the right. Since both of our legs are out, we're folding forward. This is a bilateral. Both sides of our body are doing the same thing. We're just going to have our students turn the head, or we'll turn our head halfway through the pose. And then, of course, if we didn't have a foam roller, you could always use a rolled up yoga mat, nice tight yoga mat in front of you. And again, stacking all of our props to get that height that we need to come into a restorative version of the pose. So, so since we're doing a training at home, I'm just going to make a comment to you, Danielle, while you're doing this live with me. I see that everything is kind of crowded up into the chest. It looks like it's going to be hard for you to fold forwards. So you see you have a yoga block that's really close to you, that one. Yeah. Let's see if we can move that farther away. So if you take that purple yoga block that you have, right, I'll mirror kind of what you look like. You've got this purple block really close in to the hip here. See if you can take the block, make it taller, and bring it out in front of you. Yeah. And even if you wanted to make it taller, you could take it onto its end and put that in. All right, so since we have a foam roller and the foam roller is round, it can roll. You might lean to a side. I know that we have some blankets or some towels. You could drape a towel onto that block and kind of create, something that kind of secures that bolster in there. All right, so let's imagine that all of our props fail us and we're having a hard time maybe doing this pose, wide legs seated forward fold with some supports. You can do it against a wall. So right behind me, I've got a closet with modified TRX straps. So I'm just going to scoot up next to that. Basically, you can do this pose against the wall, right? So legs up the wall. So let me review also with you that when we do legs up the wall, having a blanket or a towel is nice because you can fold the towel up and use that as a seat for your hips when you're against the wall. So you would fold the blanket up, put it next to the wall, have a seat on that. Right, so let's imagine the wall is right here. We sit against our side. We lean away from the wall. So if the wall's to my right, I'm going to lean into my left hand or forearm. Scoot my right hip as close as I can to the wall. And then swing our legs up. Laying on your back. If you need to, you might be able to shimmy your shoulders and get your hips closer to the wall. So now legs are up, and then we just let our legs open wide against the wall. So again, my hips are against the wall, the legs are up, and then letting gravity pull my legs open. And so again, in our restorative yoga class, since we are, not in person, it's very hard. Obviously, we can't just jump through the screen and help our students get into the pose with the props that might be, unorthodox props or just some sort of arrangement that's not working. So we have to be aware of alternatives for poses. If we're doing a one-on-one session, we can immediately make that change with them and give them some options, right? But if we are doing a group class, we want to be able to, instruct those that are able to get into the intended pose and then also know an alternative and briefly show and demonstrate that for other people. So once we make our way into the pose, either legs up the wall with the legs open or seated with our prop out in front of us and doing our forward fold, right? Since this is, again, bilateral, if you're folding forward, you got your head turned from one side to the other, turn your head the other way. Breathe into the pose. Good. Remember, the breath is basically a conscious gateway to our nervous system and our nervous responses. When we choose to breathe slow and refined, we're choosing a breath and rhythm that's going to promote the parasympathetic side of our nervous system, the relaxation response. When we let the breath be natural, the breath is going to respond to, our different mental states. So if we are worried about, a personal relationship, a work relationship, we're worried about, whatever it might be, our breath is going to subtly reflect that, and we're going to be in that worried emotional response, nervous response, the sympathetic side of our nervous system. That's not to say that we live every single day, every single moment in a slightly stressed response, but with our technology, constant access to emails, constant availability through some sort of messaging app, the constant availability of information, be it local news, national news, global news, whatever we want to know, pretty much at our fingertips. So we have the ability to constantly and consistently send our attention out. And that attention flowing outwards into all these different things can be agitating for the nervous system. So we do want to practice inward reflection and inward awareness of our nervous responses so that we can, again, promote health and restoration. And so the restorative poses give us that time to turn inwards, to observe the body, to surrender into the body, to practice strong determination, noticing again what is coming up that's agitating, seeing if we can work into that to let it go. So we are doing our supported wide leg forward fold, or we're doing this pose with legs up the wall. So let's go ahead and transition out of our Upavista konasana and move into seated reclined twists. And this is the one that we demoed earlier at the beginning of our session. I do want to do these, actually we're going to do a different twist. I'm sorry, we're going to change that up. We're going to do a full proper on your back reclined twist with a support. And what we need here is we need a yoga bolster, or we need a big stack of pillows, or like we were doing before, putting a pillow on top of a foam roller to create almost a yoga bolster. So move slowly out of your supported angle pose, the Upavista konasana, and go ahead and lay on your back and get those props next to you. All right, so I am going to, let's see, which is the best way for me to face you, is I'm going to turn around. I'm going to face away from you. This way here you can see my shoulders, and I'm going to do this twist to my right. So go ahead, and I'm going to use a pillow and a foam roller. So if I'm laying down and I'm doing this on the right side, we're going to have our props to the right. Okay, so we want our bolster, if we have a full big yoga bolster, we're going to line that bolster up with our armpit. So laying down on the ground, I'm going to line the bolster up with my armpit. Okay, so this is a reclined twist. and we're using the bolster to support our leg that twists over top of the body, right? So you can see my right leg will be extended, and we'll invite our students to bring the left leg up, almost our half anapanasana, Ardha Anapanasana. And then from here, we're going to take this left leg and bring it to the bolster on the right, draping the leg on the bolster. Okay, we can take our arms out to the sides like a T as well. All right, so keep your gaze up towards the sky. And again, this foam roller and pillow is not as long as a traditional yoga bolster, so I just need to scoot that down and away. So whatever you need to do, use your props to support the leg that is crossed over here. All right, now some folks may find discomfort in the neck or the shoulders. So you can also have your students place a yoga blanket underneath their shoulders so that the edge of the blanket or the towel is at the top edge of your shoulders. So if I had my yoga blanket right here at the top of the yoga mat, as I was already laying down, before I did the twist, I would have lined this up. So I would have placed the blanket down, I would have lined the blanket up with my shoulders, then I would have lined my prop up to the side, bring the knee into the chest, right? Ardha Apanasana into our reclined supported twist. Okay, so since we are doing one side at a time, unilateral, so uni being one, lateral side, unilateral, we would stay in this side for about 5 minutes or so, and then we would switch to the other. So when I was teaching the class in person and we had yoga bolsters, I would tell everyone just to grab their bolster and bring it up on the body to transition to the other side. So this way here, it's just very easy to bring it up, place it onto the opposite side. Left leg is extended. Inhale, right knee into the chest, half anapanasana. And then as we exhale, go into your twist. Now, if you don't have the traditional yoga bolster, you have multiple props that you're bringing with you. Take your time, get everything set up, and get into the pose. We have enough time in a restorative yoga class to get cozy in each pose. 5 minutes, maybe in a busy day, doesn't seem like a lot, but when we are just sitting for 5 minutes, it can seem like a long time. So take your time, get those props in the right position. Get yourself feeling comfortable in the position. Maybe take that 30 seconds, almost a minute to get there, and then surrender. Strong determination. Turning, again, awareness to a conscious inhale, a conscious exhale. Using an intention with the breath, that sankalpa, right, of maybe relaxation, peace, happiness, surrender, whatever that mantra might be, that intention might be. Use the breath to create that potency, to physically manifest the intention, right? If we think about it, if, for example, we're going to build a house, right? We need to contact or contract an architect to design the house. So we have the intention of creating a home for ourselves, but that intention, right, we need to bring it out externally. So our idea in our mind, we share that with an architect, and then they bring it to life by drawing it out, drawing up those plans, right? And then, right, we have the idea, and then that idea we need to actually manifest, right? So we contract a general contractor, a home builder, and we give the plans to them, and we slowly start to physically manifest, right, our idea. So the breath is sort of that segue between architect and contractor, the builder, right? So we have the idea of peace and relaxation in our mind. So we visualize that, we see that, so we need to bring it out, we need to manifest it. So by using your breath, you manifest peace and happiness by breathing in a peaceful and happy way. And then allow the body to start to manifest that, right? So it's in the breath, then it's in the body. And then if we can remain laser pointed, focused on that sankalpa, that intention, right, we can, each moment that passes can be an expression of that intention. We can physically manifest it. All right, so let's slowly come back on up. I know that we kind of went a little bit longer with everything, but again, I just want to make sure that we have some visual examples of what some of these restorative yoga poses look like, how to use just some household objects to come into these supported restorative yoga poses. And so now what we would do is our Savasana. So from those reclined twists gives us a great opportunity to come into Savasana. And if you have the time at home, I would say go ahead, move the props out of the way, come into Savasana. I want to, before we go, just show you a couple of alternatives that we can use props to support our Savasana. So just like we used the blanket or the yoga towel, whatever it is, at the top of the mat, you can use this under your shoulders, and Savasana just provides an elevated surface for the head and the neck. Another option is putting something underneath our knees. So in Savasana, our legs are out, we're laid back. Some of us have some tightness in the knees. So you can use a rolled up yoga mat, you can use a pillow or bolster underneath the knees, just to provide a little elevation there. So when we lay back, our knees are supported. Now, another option is to do a version of our fish pose. And what I like to do with this one is I like to keep the bolster or pillow or blanket underneath my knees, and then I'll take another yoga bolster or rolled up yoga mat, and I'm going to put this right behind my spine. So I'm going to line this up with my back. So get it as tightly rolled as you can. So since I'm using a yoga mat, I'm going to tightly roll this thing up. And I'm going to make sure that this roll matches my spine vertically, right? So the short end of your foam roller or the short end of your mat is right up against your hips. And then it goes along your spine, along the center of your mat, so that when you lay down on it, it's right in the middle of your back, and it helps open the shoulders to the ground. Yes, perfect, just like that, yes. All right, so it's right up against the sacrum, the lower back. Make sure that you feel comfortable, right? There's no pinching or anything that's going on there. Make sure that the middle of the foam roller, the middle of the mat, the blanket, the towel, whatever it is right along your spinal column. Keep those shoulder blades together. It's almost like you're hugging that prop behind you with your shoulder blades, and let the palms be up towards the sky. And so I like this combination because it helps to open up the hips, helps to open up the shoulders, and we are fully supported in a reclined position that we can practice our corpse pose, Savasana, or supported fish pose as our last pose for a restorative yoga class. That's just how I like to end it. So if you have the time, go ahead and take the 10 minutes to rest into this pose or any Savasana of your choice. Remember that at the end of the class, we want to still remain alert with our awareness, but we want to completely disengage. So we've turned off the controlled breath. And maybe like our centering at the beginning of the class, we're exploring the five senses, right? Watching a sound come, watching that sound go, watching a smell or a taste make its presence known, watching it go, and then really withdrawing our senses, practicing that pratyahara, right? Turning attention inwards to the essence of our being, remembering that each transient sensation, each transient thought has an existence, but it is not a permanent existence, and that's what we want to know. We want to know what is permanent within us.